The fastest way to ruin your progress is to let the scale control your entire journey. Because depending on where you are in your actual fitness journey, if the scale is going up or not moving, this could be a sign that your body recomposition is actually working. And in this video, I'm going to break down exactly why that is happening and why your weight can actually spike even if you are losing fat. So stay with me here because I'm going to shift the way you understand how you see your progress from now on. But before we actually dive into the video, if you are trying to build a body that you can actually maintain, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and don't forget to turn on those notifications so that you don't miss another video. All right, let's get into it. So before we actually get into the specific reasons of why the scale is actually going up, I need to explain something super fundamental. When you lose fat, where does it actually go? No, fat cells don't just vanish. They don't just disappear. They shrink. And the fat that was actually stored inside them, those triglycerides gets broken down and released into your bloodstream. And then what actually happens is your body converts them into carbon dioxide and water. So we are literally breathing out most of it, and the rest of it is released as water, i.e. urine and sweat. So now that we actually understand this, we need to go over why this matters so much for understanding that number on the scale. Now we need to understand that fat loss, of course, is a biological process that happens consistently, but actually shows up on the scale so inconsistently. And this is because your scale actually measures the total body weight, not simply just your fat. And this, of course, includes fat, muscle tissue, water, glycogen, food in your digestive tract, and also inflammation. And I know despite what you see online, fat loss can be a very slow process because losing more than 1 to 2 pounds per week is actually very difficult and very challenging for a lot of people. And this is because 1 pound of fat is roughly 3,500 calories. So when you see a person online that lost 8 pounds in 2 weeks because they started their juice fast or cleanse, that doesn't necessarily mean they lost 8 pounds of fat. They more than likely could have lost water, glycogen, or just simply food that has been stored in their digestive tract that had been sitting there. And maybe 1 to 2 pounds of fat. But what about when you're eating properly and training consistently, and the scale simply is not moving for like 2 weeks? You might still be losing fat while your body is actually holding onto water for unrelated reasons. Let's go ahead and break down the 6 reasons for why this is actually happening. Number 1, you're most likely building muscle. So here's a visual of what I want you to keep in mind. Here is a visual of 1 pound of fat versus 1 pound of muscle so that you can see what the difference looks like. So remember, this is the exact same weight, but the volume is completely different. Muscle is a lot denser, and then you can see fat is less dense. So think about this. When you are starting your strength training program, especially as a beginner, in your first few months, you can build muscle relatively quickly. This is simply because of beginner's adaptation. So while you're actually gaining muscle and losing fat at the same time, the scale might not move that much. So I want to give you a super simplified visual of what happens if, for example, over the course of your training, you have gained 3 pounds of muscle, but you lost 3 pounds of fat simultaneously. This essentially equals 0 change on the scale. So think about this. Your clothes are actually starting to fit better. Your shape is actually changing and your measurements are actually going down. And this is simply body recomposition, one of the best things that you can do for your shape. So the scale is essentially reacting to that adaptation, not necessarily fat gain. All right, number 2, water retention from your training. Now, when you actually strength train, you create microscopic tears in the muscles. Now, this triggers repair in your body, and your body essentially sends fluid to those muscles to repair. And that might show up as temporary water weight. And this could happen especially after, for example, an intense leg day workout. But as your body begins to adapt, this decreases. Number 3, think of your glycogen storage. Now, glycogen is how your body stores carbohydrates for energy. And every gram of glycogen binds to about 3 grams of water. So as your fitness improves, you get better in the gym, more comfortable with your lifts, and your muscles store more glycogen, your body essentially stores more water, which ultimately will affect the skill. But your muscles will look fuller and your performance will definitely improve as well. Now think about when you come off an extremely restrictive chronic diet and you start eating normally again, your glycogen storages are going to refill quickly, and you might see another jump in scale that's not necessarily fat. All right, so let's talk about the smart scales that you are probably using to calculate your body fat percentage. Now, using those scales is fine, but I want you to understand that it's just estimating your fat percentage. And it does this by essentially using an electrical current that moves through your water, not fat. So think about your hydration that you're getting throughout the day. Think about the carbs that you're eating over the course of the day to keep your energy up. Think about the sodium levels that you're actually intaking, the sleep that you're getting or not getting, the stress that you're having that's elevated, and your cycle. All of these change the reading, and they could be off by 5 to 12%. So think of them as useful for longer term trends, not useful as a day-to-day metric. So as women, we cannot forget or simply ignore the fact that our hormones are fluctuating over the course of the month due to our cycle. And this ultimately is going to impact our water retention. Think about bloating that happens, especially during our luteal phase, the week right before our periods. And think about the digestion that's happening over this time as well. So for our luteal phase, which is the week right before our period, we can experience an increase of our water retention and bloating and slower digestion. For our women 38 plus, think about perimenopause, which can create more unpredictable shifts due to changes in our estrogen levels, stress, our sleep, under eating chronically, of course overeating as well, also play a major role. And if you're typically the woman that has extremely low caloric intake due to trying to rapidly lose weight, this can ultimately affect your metabolic rate and ultimately your fat loss efficiency. All right, so everything that I just covered definitely explains why the scale might go up. That is not related to, of course, over consuming calories. Now, I don't want to completely demonize the scale because we need to realize that it is not the enemy. It's just a misused tool. And we just simply need to understand how to use it correctly as one measure of progress. What we need to do is essentially weigh ourselves at the same time daily under consistent conditions. And this means right before you've eaten anything and relieved yourself from the restroom. What we need to understand is we don't react to one single reading on the scale. We need to use weekly averages to understand the fluctuations or changes in our weight. And we need to also use at least one other metric to measure our progress. So not just simply the scale. So think about taking photos maybe once a month if that's doable for you. And then comparing your photos to seeing if you've made any progress. Make sure, of course, when you're taking those photos, you're using the same light, the same pose, and even wearing the same clothes as well. Another way to do this is track your measurements. Think your waist, hips, and thighs. You can also measure the strength gains that you're making in the gym as well. So if your strength is going up, that's a great sign for your body showing you that you're definitely making progress. Track your energy, your mood, your sleep. These are also great indicators that change is happening as well. And these often improve a lot faster than the visual changes that you're going to see over time, because this does take time. Now, I do want us to be mindful of some red flags of the scale going up. And I don't want us to be naive to thinking if the scale goes up, oh, there's nothing wrong. Because we need to be mindful if there is a consistent upward trend of more than half a pound per week, especially over the next 4 weeks, our hunger is all over the place. Our energy is tanking. If all of those things are happening together, then we need to be honest with ourselves and ask ourselves, are we actually adhering to our nutrition? Are we adhering to our training program? And if not, we need to ultimately make adjustments to our programming. And if you're eating it in a caloric deficit and you're training consistently and you're still not seeing results, so you ultimately make tweaks to your caloric deficit and your training program and then still not seeing results, it's definitely worthwhile visiting your doctor to see if there are any other underlying medical reasons for why you are unable to lose that weight. All right, so here's another simple framework that you can follow to ensure that you're actually seeing results. Now, we need to incorporate at least 3 to 4 strength training sessions per week, and this is a non-negotiable because your muscle is essentially the metabolic engine. It's going to improve your insulin sensitivity, raise that resting metabolic rate, reshape your body, and actually is so important, especially every decade that we age. Now, of course, as we train, we need to include or incorporate progressive overload into our training. And this could be one more set, it could be one more rep, it could be increasing the weight over the course of our training program. Because if you don't keep asking your body to change, it's just going to stay the same. We need to incorporate protein at every single meal. Think 30 to 40 grams. Not simply just at dinner. And this is going to strongly help you get those body recomposition results that you're actually looking for. It's also going to keep you full and stabilize your blood sugar so that you're not crashing throughout the day. What we also need to ensure that we incorporate is walking daily, at least getting in those 8 to 10,000 K steps per day. Not simply as a workout, but as your baseline, because this is going to improve your insulin sensitivity and support fat oxidation in a way that doesn't crash or spike your cortisol levels. We need to make sure that we're eating in a moderate caloric deficit, slightly under maintenance, not aggressive caloric restriction, because your body needs to feel safe enough to actually burn that fat and build the muscle. Also, not to forget, we need to protect our sleep like it's part of our program, because it definitely is. And lastly, we need to stop making rash decisions based off of one number or a daily reading we saw on the scale, because I know definitely for me, it can completely derail your progress. Now, we need to understand that the scale is simply one data point that we're going to use to identify or track our progress. So what I'd encourage you to do is go ahead and take a progress photo starting today. Because think about this, 8 weeks from now, you will have that proof that shows that you're actually making progress. And if you want a full system on how to eat, how to train, and how to track your progress properly in a way that actually makes sense for your body, I'm going ahead and creating a 6-week body recomposition starter program, which is going to help you do exactly that. Now, if this helped you understand your body just a little bit better, don't forget to hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Also, turn on your notifications so that you can see when I drop the program. All right, I will see you in the next video.